The following presentation will be on eReader devices presented to you by Erika Harris and Marina Chana Mendoza. Reading has been around for a very long time and has been typically done so with text or images printed on pages in a physical printed book. However, technological advances have expanded, enhanced, and advanced the reading experience.
Despite the technology being popular and well-known, for some reason there aren't any official definitions of what an e-reader is, so much so that Wikipedia was the only source we could find who defined what an e-reader was. So according to Wikipedia, an e-reader device is a piece of technology that is primarily designed for the purpose of reading digital electronic books, or better known as e-books. To expand on that definition, any device that can display images or text on a screen may act as an e-reader. However, there are devices that are designed solely for the purpose of being an e-reading device, such as e-readers like the Kindle and Kobo, or tablets that have many other features other than being an e-reader, but it is known for having this feature as well. So what makes an e-reader, and how does it differentiate itself from other electronic devices that can act as an e-reader like a tablet? Well, an e-reader uses electronic ink, or better known as e-ink, which provides a reading experience much closer to reading on paper. Reading with this technology tends to make reading easier on the eyes and requires much less power, so the device can go on for days or even weeks between charges. So unlike tablets, e-readers can be read in the full sunlight without full glare. There are much more features of it that e-ink can offer, which will be further explained in the later slides, showing why e-ink is very attractive to certain people. At the same time, it must be noted that although e-ink and certain e-reader devices have many attractive features, however, in comparison to a LCD screen display tablet, it is still limited in its functions. So what exactly is e-ink, and how is it any different from e-paper or so forth? Well, to begin with, electronic ink or e-ink is the same as electronic paper or e-paper, since they all describe the same thing: a piece of technology that mimics the appearance of ordinary ink printed on paper. This specific form of e-ink is called electrophoretic display, or better known as EPD for short. So EPD simply means that the ink itself is composed of small capsules of clear fluids that are made of tiny particles that are sandwiched in between two electrodes. Most e-ink capsules contain black and white pigments separated by a transparent fluid, where the pigments hold opposite charges. In this illustration, for example, you see that the negative charges are black and positive for white. So a negative charge applied to the bottom of the capsule repels a black pigment, forcing it to the top and making it visible on a screen as a darkened area. Well, this can be reversed and changes the color presentation by simply switching the colors used by applying a positive charge instead. In the complexity of how e-readers work, e-reading devices that uses e-ink or EDP can offer a less environmentally harmful impact, and it has a longer lifespan than LCD display e-readers.
Now, just because it was mentioned that e-reading devices that uses EDP technology are considerably much more eco-friendly and last longer than LCD screens does not determine how much better a device is for you. As for being a printed book reader or an e-book reader, the answer still stays relatively the same, for it is up to the consumer to see what they value so they know which option is best for them. So here we are going to present to you what are the benefits of being a printed book reader versus an e-book reader. To begin with, buying multiple ebooks is cheaper than buying multiple printed books. With ebooks, you have the option to pick and customize images and text by changing fonts, size, and colors. Last benefit is that e-reader devices are lightweight and made portable, unlike printed books. Now for printed books. The benefit of it is the reading experience is amplified and unmatched by the feel of the book. It is easier on the eyes. This specifically applies to reading a tablet or a LCD e-reader. Next is buying a single book is cheaper than buying an e-reader and e-book one time. So if you're not an avid reader, buying printed books once in a while is considered more economical than buying an e-reader and buying a few ebooks sporadically. Last benefit is that books are long-lasting. They can hold many memories and become a great home decor as well, since books can be beautiful, as some books are designed to do so. So how did the e-reader become the device we know today, and what is its impact on society? Well, it first started in 1971 when Michael S. Hart launched Project Gutenberg and digitized the U.S. Declaration of Independence and put it online. This was the first e-book ever to be made. In 1985, the Voyager Company, a pioneer in CD-ROMs, was founded and published expanded books on CD-ROMs. This was the first time we saw another form of electronic books, and this was the first time books were put onto CDs and being sold to public. In 1993, Digital Book Inc. offered the first 50 books of the books they were selling around that time with an additional floppy disk that contained the book. In 1998, a few things happened because of the launch of the first actual e-reader device, and it was called the Rocket eBook, was introduced to the public. Since the books are now being read on this device, ebooks that were made for the device had their own ISBN. People were so excited for this innovation, and even U.S. libraries began providing ebooks to the public through their website and associated services. Lastly, a very important event that coincided with this was the founding of Google by Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Now, in 2002, Random House and HarperCollins started selling digital versions of their publications.
In 2004, Sony released its Sony Library eReader and then its Sony Reader in 2006, which were their earliest models of e-readers. In 2007, Amazon launched the Kindle ebook reader in the US. In 2009, Barnes & Noble introduced their own e-reader called the Nook, while Sony linked with libraries via the Overdrive digital network to enable library patrons to borrow ebooks from their local library. In 2010, which was the e-reader's most eventful and important year where many things happened. To begin with, Apple released the iPad along with iBooks and its iBook store on iTunes, selling 500,000 ebooks in less than a month, while Google's ebook store launched. Lastly, Amazon reported that for the first time, its ebook sales outnumbered its hardcover book sales. In 2011, ebook sales at Amazon had outpaced its paperback sales, and by the end of the first quarter of 2012, ebook sales in the U.S. surpassed all hardcover book sales for the first time, topping over $3 billion in revenue worldwide. Now, fast forward to 2020, printed books have been doing better than ebooks up until the pandemic, which has pushed many people to read ebooks instead, bringing back ebooks back to the public. So what are the environmental effects of e-readers and books? Here, we are to compare the harmful effects from the materials that were gathered to make them, the manufacturing, the transportation, the usage of the products, to the very end, the disposal of the product.
To begin with, to produce one e-reader, approximately 33 pounds of minerals, including some toxic and conflict minerals, are used. Lastly, it uses up to 79 gallons of water, producing lots of waste that is dumped into landfills. As for books, producing a book from recycled paper uses about 2/3 of a pound of minerals and 2 gallons of water. But it's not all good news for the book industry, since according to a study, combined, the U.S. book and newspaper production requires the harvesting of more than 100 million trees, generating tremendous amounts of wastewater and creating a sizable carbon footprint. Now for the manufacturing stage of these products. First, an e-reader's manufacturing process consumes approximately 100 kilowatt hours of fossil fuels and produces more than 65 pounds of carbon dioxide. In the production of e-readers, there is use of toxic chemicals present in the process, which can also be very dangerous for people to be around. As for books, producing one book consumes 2 kilowatt hours of fossil fuels and approximately 7.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide, for a total of 100 times fewer greenhouse gases than those caused by the production of one e-reader. But that doesn't mean books go easy on the environment. Paper production often poses risks to virgin, old-growth forests. The newspaper and book publishing industries alone consume 1.5 billion gallons of water each year. Producing ink for printing releases volatile organic compounds, or better known as VOCs, into the atmosphere, which can aggravate moth and asthma.
Now for the transportation involved with both products. To begin with, most new consumer electronics are produced abroad, which means your new e-reader probably had to be shipped across oceans and land to make its way into your hands. All that shipping requires burning a huge amount of fossil fuels. As for books, it's a little difficult to determine the waste produced with this variable stage, since it depends on whether a book was purchased online, and if that purchase required transport by air or over land, or whether a book was purchased at a bookstore, and if that purchase required driving to the store. and so forth. Suffice to say, transportation by plane, train, car, ship, or automobile requires the burning of fossil fuels. Meanwhile, 25 to 36% of all books in the bookstores are returned to the publisher, wasting tremendous amounts of energy in transportation and disposal. Now for how using these products affects the environment. To begin with, as aforementioned, some e-readers, depending if you get the e-ink ones, not the LCD ones, require no backlighting. However, if tablets or any device's primary function isn't to be an e-reader, the consumption of energy and electricity is much more sizable. The more premium and sophisticated the e-reader is, the more minerals and precious metals that are to be extracted and used. As for books, if you read at night for multiple hours, powering the light bulb in a bedside lamp will likely use up more energy than it takes to charge an e-reader. But most of your reading occurs during daylight hours, times you wouldn't need artificial light. Then books come out on top. Also, keep in mind that books, when properly cared for, have much more longevity than e-readers. Plus, one book can be shared with literally hundreds of people in its lifetime, reducing the need to produce additional copies.
In the disposal stage, generally most people don't properly dispose of portable devices, including the e-reader. If an e-reader isn't properly recycled, toxic substances will be released. Lastly, dumping electronic waste also takes a toll on ecosystems. In the disposal stage of a book, if a book makes its way to the landfill, then its process of decomposition will produce twice the climate change emissions as the manufacturing process. So with keeping all these issues in mind, here are 7 easy solutions you guys can do to be less harmful to the environment. 1. Buy rarely or buy used books. Whether it's a book or an e-reader, buying new products always takes a toll on the environment. Whenever you can, borrow or buy used materials. 2. If you do buy an e-reader, use it up. Instead of upgrading the model, use your e-reader until you can't be used anymore. That way, you're helping to pay back the eco-debt incurred by the device's production. 3. When the device does die, recycle it responsibly. If you buy an e-reader but find that you aren't using it, sell or give it to someone who will. 4. Buy books online. Large brick and mortar bookstores tend to be very inefficient because they stock more books than they sell, which means they end up shipping back a significant chunk of books to their publisher. As a result, books purchased in bookstores generally have a much bigger carbon footprint than their online counterparts.
5. Try shopping books at eco-conscious stores, where they might sell recycled books or books made of recycled materials. 6. Pick what type of reader you'd like to be and stick to it. Decide what matters most. So many factors go into this decision that it ultimately comes down to what you determine to be the most important criteria. And last solution, borrow print books or download ebooks from your local library.
Here's our bibliography.
And that is all we have for this presentation. Thank you for listening.